Welcome back to Tefillah Tidbits on Tuesdays. I am excited to see everyone, to be here again. We are going to be talking about Psalm 99 today. We're already at Psalm 99. I'm excited to be here again with our artist in residence, Josh Niehaus. Hey, Josh.
Hello, hello. Good to see you.
And thrilled that we have Rabbi Sydney here with us again. Hey, Rabbi Sydney.
Hi, everyone.
So I'm going to turn it over to you, Rabbi Sydney, to introduce this psalm.
Yeah, so Psalm 99, we have some words that I'm sure everybody is familiar with, at least from our Shabbat morning services when we do our hakafa, when we do our processional with the Torah, the words of Rom'mu. And tonight we're actually looking at it as a part of our Kabbalat Shabbat, of our reception of Shabbat. And it's representative of the fifth day of creation. And if you flip through your book of Genesis, you'll see the fifth day of creation was when God created all of the things that swarmed on land, and not necessarily like your dogs and cats and cows and that kind of thing, but creatures on the earth that creeped and filled the sky as well. And so this one is so interesting because the last few verses, I want to sort of just draw your attention to the fact that, as I normally say, translation is an art, not a science. And you can read one translation of a psalm or a bit of our Torah and get one feeling from it or one image. And then you can read a completely different translation and have a very different experience. So when reading the very, very last few lines of Psalm 99, we see that traditionally we translate Rom'mu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehar kodsho as exalt the Lord our God and bow toward his holy hill. I don't necessarily translate har as hill. I think of like mountain. And when you say lahar kodsho, like this holy mountain, for me it evokes this idea of Sinai, of the people being together at Sinai. And so again, as we've referenced before, Rabbi Richard Levy, Zichrono Livracha, our professor from Hebrew Union College, wrote actually a beautiful translation of this in a much more artistic way. And what I love is that it not only evokes the sense of this holy mountain, of us standing at Sinai to receive God's law in God's presence, but he translates it as raise high Adonai our God, bow low before the mountain where God's holiness appears. So holy is our God, is Adonai our God. And for me, as I read this, raise high Adonai our God, bow low before the mountain, I think a lot of our prayer service itself and the way in which movement is so incorporated into everything that we do and the ways in which we pray. Sometimes I joke around and say that Jewish prayer is a lot of stand up, sit down, fight, fight, fight. But really, the idea of engaging your physical self with your mental and your spiritual self, when you have those three come together and work in accord with one another, that's when you're really praying with everything you've got, which is really what the psalmist is encouraging, this idea of praying with every little sinew, every little recess of your mind and your spirit. And so I'm going to encourage you, as we're thinking of this Rom'mu prayer, to almost think of it as kind of a stretching exercise. We're about to head into our Shabbat service. We're at Psalm 99, fifth day of creation. And so I almost want you to think of like, Rom'mu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehar kodsho, like this idea of, rising up or raising God up, and then us with our whole bodies bowing low in reverence to God. So we have a lot of different tunes that we use for this. I think the most familiar one for me goes, Rom'mu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. And so that idea of exalting God with our words, our voice, our physical self as we're standing at God's holy mountain is such a beautiful thought as we stand together on a Kabbalat Shabbat evening and get ready to exalt God.
So Josh is going to teach us a different melody. And one of the reasons we're doing this is to be able to not just deep dive into the text together, but to also be able to learn new melodies that we can use in our service together. Josh, I very much appreciate that in each of our videos, you've had a different background that sometimes subtly and sometimes not so subtly hints at whatever we're talking about. So I'm loving your background, and I look forward to talking about that scene a little bit more after you teach us a melody.
Rom'mu, 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 Rom'mu. Try that with me. Rom'mu, 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 Rom'mu. V'yishtachavu l'kodsho, ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. Rom'mu, 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 ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. Hay, ay, 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 ay. Rom'mu, 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 Rom'mu. One more time, ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. Ya la la, ya la la, ya la la, la. Rom'mu, 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 Rom'mu.
Thanks, Josh. Very cool melody. So I know this melody from Ikar, which is a congregation in Los Angeles, and from Hillel Tigay, who is the chazan there. So Josh, it has been many years since I took AP Music Theory, so you're going to tell me all the ways in which I'm wrong. But so I love this melody, first of all. And it has a very different feel, for sure, a different feel from the Craig Talman one that Rabbi Sidney sang, and then also from the one you do at Kavanagh that Josh and I also did at camp. I don't even know how to explain it, because it's not, we always talk about how like some of the old school Jewish music is all like A minor, E minor, and it's not that. But it also, it has a different flavor. It doesn't feel like it's in major, but you're going to tell me that I'm wrong. But it doesn't feel like the other melodies we've been doing. It has such a different feeling. So I don't know, what's your take on this melody?
Well, because when we're talking about major or minor, we're really talking about the Western musical culture, and we're not in that mode right now with this one, which is why it does feel a little bit different and familiar. But in Jewish music, we would typically, like, especially out of the Ashkenormative musical traditions, you would have something like this. Yeah, 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 yeah. That'd be your typical minor. Da, da, na, 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 hallelujah, hallelujah. And it's very similar to that melody, which we already know. But this one, yeah, yeah, yeah. So it actually is major. And that's what's totally different about yeah, 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 yeah. And to me, it evokes, and jump in if this is what you're about to say, but it evokes a very pre Ashkenazic, even that divide between Ashkenazim and Sephardim. This is when we were Israelites marching through the desert as tribes, and there's something tribal in a very authentically Jewish way about this.
Yeah, let's talk about that picture, that background. So as I mentioned, I've sung this many times at Ikar, Rabbi Sidney. I'm sure you have had that experience as well. And the services there are like multiple people playing drums and different instruments, and they're like, there's this call and response that we don't quite get by having Josh do it on your own, which it's beautiful. And it almost has this feeling of like this sort of ecstatic feeling, like there's no way to control, like you're so overwhelmed that it's just like you have to be moving and dancing, sort of like Rabbi Sidney said. And it totally reminds me of like what I imagine to have been happening at the bottom of the mountain, this tribal moment. So I don't know, do either of you pick up on that? Does that resonate for you, or do you totally disagree?
I totally agree. One of the things so ICAR is part of the Jewish Emergent Network, which, I had my internship or fellowship with them. And one of the common threads that I think unites all of the 7 communities in the Jewish Emergent Network is this drive toward what they call sort of Jewish authenticity. So that Josh used that word. And in some ways you might bristle at it saying, like, does that mean like halachically bound Jews? Does that mean like orthodoxy? What does that mean? And I think for a lot of people in the network, that actually meant very much what Josh is kind of hearkening back to, this idea of like returning to something that feels very original and very tribal. And one of the things that I would love to bring to TBT, and Josh and I have already talked about it, is this idea of creating the type of service that really draws you in and makes you feel like it's almost an ecstatic experience. Prayer is. And I think certain modes of music definitely get you there. And I can see us out in the desert dancing around with drums and really bringing prayer back to where it was supposed to be, which is an offering, as I talk with Shira, an offering from our hearts. And, getting people out of their seats and out of the pews and, wiping away that face and really getting into the prayer.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we talked a few weeks ago when we did Or Zarua by Dan Nichols. We talked about how we can't wait to be in person and layer those harmonies. And in the same way, like with this melody, I can't wait to be in person with everybody singing this together. And I can imagine what could possibly come out of that with lots of different instruments and movement and that call and response. It's a totally different feeling than what we're used to.
And it totally needs that call and response. That one part of you can't even learn that part from what I just shared, because there is just that one vehishtachavu. It's such an amazing, like ecstatic feeling that in the recording from Hillel Tigay that I hear. So I tried, if Hillel sees this, sorry, I butchered that part. I know I need more. I need more to pull that off like you guys do, but it really is a beautiful melody.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Josh, for teaching us that melody. Thank you, Rabbi Sidney, for teaching us about the psalm. And we look forward to singing it with you on Friday at our Kabbalat Shabbat service at 7 p.m. virtually. And we also definitely look forward to the day when we can be in person, moving together, creating together, using all of our instruments together. So looking forward to that. And until then, we will see you later.
Rom'mu.